The story starts with a man taking heavy breaths in shock by seeing a terrible car accident on the highway. Meanwhile, another man is on the phone with his daughter Reika. He asked her to meet him at a restaurant. Then he went straight to the restaurant, and while waiting, he checked some reviews of his work on his phone. Just then, Reika arrives, but she is wearing a mask and cap to hide her face. Her father asks her to remove it. When she does, he's shocked to see the injuries on her face. Reika claims she fell, but her father suspects that her boyfriend abused her. After that, Reika leaves, and her father later goes to her apartment. Then he hears her boyfriend talking with friends about how he has been abusing Reika. Her father hesitates to confront him, but then he gets beaten up by an unknown guy. The man takes his nude photos and warns him not to tell anyone. After that, Reika's father, Tetsuo, visits an internet cafe and tells his wife that he would not come home tonight. The next day, Tetsuo tells his boss that he can't go to work due to his injuries. After that, he listens to some music that Reika composed in the past and remembers her saying that she would not play it again unless he paid 30,000 yen for a CD. He decides to go to Reika's apartment to investigate, since he already has a spare key. In the apartment, Tetsuo suddenly hears the sound of Reika's boyfriend coming, so he hides in a closet. He listens to his daughter's boyfriend tell his friend about his plan to take advantage of Reika and then leave her. He also mentions that he wants Reika's grandfather's inheritance. But when Reika's boyfriend learns that Tetsuo was following them last night, he got mad at Reika and vows to kill her. Suddenly, he hears a voice from the cabinet, but when he is about to open it, his phone rings, which distracts him. When Tetsuo hears Reika's boyfriend threatening to kill him, he vows to protect his family at any cost. Meanwhile, a man named Kubo arrives at the complex. He is upset because Reika's boyfriend is not answering his calls. He sends Kyoichi inside to find him. After some time, Tetsuo's wife arrives and finds Reika's boyfriend dead, and she finds Tetsuo crying beside the body. Tetsuo tells her that he had beaten and killed Reika's boyfriend with an electronic device. Hearing this, Tetsuo's wife says that it is likely self-defense, and they can defend him in court. But Tetsuo mentions that this is wrong, as they might go against the Yakuza, since Reika's boyfriend might have been involved with them. Then she suggests to hide the body to make it look like a missing persons case. Tetsuo agrees, and they begin trying to cover up the murder. Meanwhile, Kyoichi suspects something happened to Reika's boyfriend. Just then, Reika returns home, and her parents explain what they discovered about the boyfriend's plans. Her mother jokes that abusers should die, but Reika is too upset to laugh. She wished that her boyfriend had treated her better. As they leave, Kyoichi informs Kubo that Nabuto might not be here. Meanwhile, Tetsuo is left at the apartment. Suddenly he hears someone at the front door and hides as he fears that it's one of Nabuto's friends. Kyoichi enters the room, but he finds no one inside. Then someone opens that bathroom door and sees Nabuto's body in the bathtub. Meanwhile, Reika's mother asked her to go ahead as she has some work to do. Then Kubo orders his men to track down Reika. Meanwhile, Kyoichi encounters Tetsuo, who has changed his appearance as a woman named Suzuki. Kyoichi tries calling Nabuto's phone but gets no response, which worries Tetsuo. Kyoichi returns to Kubo's car and updates him on the situation. Kubo tells Kyoichi to monitor Reika and suggests to kidnap her if necessary. Tetsuo is relieved that he destroyed Nabuto's phone. After some time, his wife arrives with the items he requested and confirms that Reika is safe at their home. Then Tetsuo reveals his plans to dispose of Nabuto's body by turning the bathtub into a cooking pot. He instructs his wife to go home and prepare a meal for Reika while he handles the body. At the same time, Kubo visits Nabuto's father, who asks about his son. After Tetsuo finishes his grim task, he returns home. Reika asks if it's safe to go back to her apartment, but Tetsuo says no. Reika's mother offers to let her stay with them for a few days, and although Reika is hesitant, she agrees. After that, Reika watches a movie, and Tetsuo reflects on how it has been 18 years since Reika was born, and how grateful he is that everyone has survived so far. At night, Tetsuo wakes up from a nightmare, thinking about how he brought back all of Nabuto's bones and flesh. He realizes that while he can dry the bones, he still needs to deal with the flesh. Before leaving, Tetsuo's wife tells him that a black car has been parked outside for a while, and she wonders if they are being watched. Tetsuo decides to test how the people in the car will react and tells his wife to inform him if they start following him. He drives off and notices that the people in the car are not after him. After that, Tetsuo goes to a store to buy gardening tools. And while he's inside, some men approach his car as they are suspecting that Tetsuo might have hidden Nabuto's body in his suitcase. However, they find only clothes and towels inside. When Tetsuo returns, he realizes that someone touched his suitcase, and then he instantly texts his wife that they're being watched. Although Tetsuo is nervous, he's sure that Nabuto's friends don't know he's been killed and are still investigating. He returns home and tells his wife that they will remove Nabuto's body by using a compost accelerator. While they are busy doing it, Reika suddenly walks in and notices all the gardening supplies in her parents' room. Her mother explains that they plan to start a garden, but Reika suggests for an outdoor garden instead. After some time, a man named Shingo, who is posing as a property appraiser, visits Tetsuo and his family. While they are talking, Kyoichi sneaks into the house through the back door. Reika notices something off about the back door, and at the same time, something in the room catches Kyoichi's eye. But he gets distracted by an urgent call from his allies. Shingo leaves, but Tetsuo and his wife instantly suspect that Shingo is working for the people monitoring them. They instantly rush to check their room for anything suspicious, but they are unaware that Kyoichi is hiding in their closet and listening to their conversation. Kyoichi feels something is wrong with Tetsuo and his family, but then he reports back to his men in the car. Later, while Reika is taking a shower, her mother discovers a listening device hidden in one of their electric switchboards. She shows it to Tetsuo and also mentions that the back door was left unlocked. After that, Tetsuo and his wife create a story about a strange stalker, which Kyoichi and his men heard and got convinced with it. Their plan works, and Tetsuo and his wife proceed to remove Nabuto's body from their room. Tetsuo's wife asks how he knows so much about getting rid of a body, and Tetsuo explains that he has read many mystery novels. Then she agrees to help him because she also wants to protect Reika. The next morning, Tetsuo thought that they've completed their mission and buried Nabuto's body. But as he walks, he worries if he did everything right and didn't leave any traces. Meanwhile, at nighttime, Tetsuo is tased by Kyoichi, and his wife is ambushed by a group of men. 3 days after Nabuto's murder, Tetsuo meets someone and talks about being late for work, but then he says that he has something important to finish first. Meanwhile, the police arrive at Reika's apartment at night, while Tetsuo is busy removing Nabuto's odor from the bathroom. While doing this, he sees a news report about a father arrested for murder. Kyoichi reports to Kubo about what he learned, including Tetsuo's conversation with his wife about a stalker. He used Reika's friend Kana to confirm whether Reika had a stalker, but found out she didn't. Reika talks to her mother about the situation, and her mother suspects that Tetsuo's lie might have been discovered, so she plans to call him. Meanwhile, Kyoichi asks if he can take action against Tetsuo and his wife, but Kubo doesn't approve. However, Kyoichi's group convinces him to go against Kubo's orders, which is seen earlier. In an isolated location, Kyoichi pins Tetsuo down and questions him about the stalker, knowing that it was a lie. Tetsuo sticks to his story and says that he hired an investigator named Suzuki, which was the same name he used earlier. Meanwhile, Nabuto's father Matori calls Kyoichi and demands to see Nabuto. Matori threatens to leave the organization if he doesn't see him. Kyoichi gets worried, so he takes Tetsuo to a height and continues pressuring him for information. But when Tetsuo did not give a proper answer, he kicked him. Tetsuo fell with a scream, but he is safe because of the rope that is tied on his legs. While Tetsuo is hanging, Kyoichi keeps asking for more information, but Tetsuo gives them false information and claims that he talked about the stalker only through email with Suzuki, but the group finds no message history on his phone. Kyoichi and his men start to lose patience, and one of them cuts Tetsuo's face. They plan to interrogate Tetsuo's wife to see if her story matches his. Tetsuo realizes there's no way out and starts losing hope. When they call his wife, her story aligns with his. Tetsuo is relieved and feels happy for the plan they prepared earlier. Kasen made up a story about 2 cats as she discovered that these men have limited time. After that, all the men left. Later, Kubo informs Kyoichi that Takeda will take over the search for Nabuto. Kyoichi got angry and frees Tetsuo, but tells him that he must kill him to satisfy the higher-ups. Tetsuo gets scared and tries to convince Kyoichi to work with him by offering information that could help locate Nabuto. The next day, Kasen picked up Tetsuo from the clinic after he made a deal with Kyoichi. Meanwhile, Kyoichi had told Tetsuo that if he doesn't help find Nabuto by Friday, then he will kill him and frame him for murder. Tetsuo doesn't tell his wife about this deal to keep her and the family out of danger. While Tetsuo is thinking of ways to cover up his crime, Reika enters in his room. She asks about his injuries. Tetsuo lies and says that he had a minor accident. He also asks Reika for a picture of her with Nabuto, which she reluctantly agrees to give. At night, Tetsuo meets Kyoichi, but Kyoichi warns him that if he had been even a minute late, he would have sent the photos of Tetsuo to his contacts. Kyoichi also reveals that he knows Tetsuo had been tailing Nabuto. Tetsuo gives an unclear response and starts to worry that his lies are catching up with him. Kyoichi and Tetsuo visit a club called Cosplay Peachy Academy to retrace Nabuto's steps before he disappeared. They meet a woman who is in a relationship with Nabuto. Tetsuo is angry to learn that Nabuto cheated on Reika. The woman reveals that she and Nabuto had been together for a long time, and although Nabuto cheated on her with 4 other girls, she is okay with it because Nabuto claimed she is special to him. But when the girl mentioned Reika indirectly, Tetsuo felt uncomfortable. He goes to the restroom to release his anger towards Nabuto. After returning, the woman tells him that Kyoichi has stepped outside. She then realizes that Tetsuo is Reika's father because she received a photo of him from Nabuto's boss, who had been listening to their conversation using a hidden device. Tetsuo explains that he's looking for Nabuto to protect Reika and that he doesn't mind working with the organization if it can prove his innocence. The woman apologizes, and Tetsuo says that when they find Nabuto, he will ask him to break up with Reika for her sake. Tetsuo also suggests that the organization might have disposed of Nabuto or that Nabuto could be on the run. The woman shares that Nabuto once told her he had robbed an armored car for money by going against the organization's rules as a way to prove his love for her. Then, she shows Tetsuo Nabuto's secret Twitter account, which the organization doesn't know about. Tetsuo plans to use this account to either prove Nabuto's betrayal or to prepare fake evidence that Nabuto is still alive. But suddenly, Kyoichi returns with the club owner, who handcuffs Tetsuo and Kyoichi because they can't pay a 10 million yen bill. The owner orders them to follow a man and retrieve his bag of goods. When they reach their destination, the man threatens them with a gun to make them do the task. Meanwhile, Kyoichi asks Tetsuo if he is the one who killed Nabuto. He suspected him, and that's why he teamed up with him. After that, Kyoichi drives into a gang's path, which results in a shootout as Tetsuo and Kyoichi are trying to escape. However, at some distance in the forest, they got caught by one of the gang members. The man was trying to shoot Tetsuo and Kyoichi, but he ends up getting shot instead. Then Kubo approaches Tetsuo and Kyoichi. He punishes Kyoichi for betraying him and forces Tetsuo to confess to a crime that he didn't commit. Kubo filmed Tetsuo's acceptance of it as evidence. When Tetsuo arrived at home, he explained to his wife about what happened and urges him to tell her the truth to protect himself. Tetsuo reveals that Nabuto's organization is watching him, and he has only 3 days to find Nabuto, or they will kill him. Tetsuo reveals his plans to fake evidence showing that Nabuto is still alive. He decides to create a video with the help of a friend, Tabata. However, Kasen is unsure how it will work. Then a flashback of 21 years ago shows where Tabata met Kasen at a drama club. That time, Tabata was trying to break into acting, but he had failed multiple auditions. In the present, Tetsuo asks Kasen to talk to Tabata and convince him to help. Kasen lies to Tabata and told him that they're filming a short, fake documentary for a wedding, and that their lead actor got injured, so they need him to fill in. However, Tabata isn't interested and wants to speak to Tetsuo first about it. While Kasen tries to convince Tabata, Tetsuo struggles to access Nabuto's private account. He is using Nabuto's old phone, but he can't figure out the password. Meanwhile, Kasen continues trying to convince Tabata, but when he brings up payment for it, she gets frustrated. He also asks if she's happy with Tetsuo, and she admits their relationship isn't perfect, but she's okay with that. Meanwhile, Tetsuo receives a message from Hibiki. She says that she found Nabuto's old phone, but not the SIM card. Tetsuo meets Hibiki, who hands him the phone. He tries resetting Nabuto's password, but gets stuck on a security question about Nabuto's childhood pet. Just then, the men monitoring Tetsuo call him and warn him not to try anything suspicious. Tetsuo asks the man watching him about Nobuto's pet, but he gets no helpful information from him. Later, Tetsuo goes to a bar, and there he gets into a conversation with Nobuto's father, Matiro, unknowingly. They discuss about their children and their lives. Matiro says that if someone hurt his child, he would kill the person and their entire family. After a deep conversation, they introduce themselves, but Tetsuo uses Tabata's name. After that, Matiro leaves from there. Then Tetsuo inquires about Nobuto, but he gets shocked to know that the person who was just sitting next to him was Nobuto's father. Matiro also realizes that Tetsuo lied about his name. After remembering what Matori told him about his son, Tetsuo feels guilty for killing Nobuto. At home, he tells his wife Kasen about meeting Nobuto's father. He remembers Matiro mentioning the word cap and thinks it might help him figure out Nobuto's password. Kasen suggests that it could be a nickname, so they try a few guesses until they find out the password is Captain. The next morning, Matiro tells Kubo that if he doesn't find his son soon, he will cut ties with him. Meanwhile, Kyoichi confronts Tetsuo about tampering with the microphone. Tetsuo denies it and says that he was at a bar which Nobuto used to visit. But Kyoichi suspects Tetsuo killed Nobuto, but Tetsuo asks him if he has any evidence. Then Kyoichi tells him that Matiro doesn't need proof, as Matiro believes in the story that he will share. Kubo calls Kyoichi about a video that he found on Nobuto's secret account and mentions that Hibiki told him this. After that, Kyoichi and Tetsuo meet Takeda to investigate the video. In his mind, Tetsuo reveals that he uploaded the video anonymously and feels guilty for using Hibiki to hide the truth. Takeda's team can't trace the video's location because of its poor quality. Meanwhile, Tetsuo had set up a device to let Kasen listen in on their conversation in case this plan failed. During the meeting, Tetsuo asks about their data erasing process, and one of Takeda's men gives away information, which frustrates Kyoichi. Takeda eventually says the video is fake because the person in it doesn't walk like Nobuto. Kyoichi suspects the video was filmed at Tetsuo's home and demands they go there. As they arrive, Kyoichi inspects a pot in Tetsuo's room and orders him to empty it as he is suspecting something suspicious. However, Nobuto's remains have decomposed, but Tetsuo gets worried after seeing a strand of Nobuto's hair on the ground. Kasen arrives just as Tetsuo is about to be exposed. She invites Kyoichi and Tetsuo inside and serves them coffee. During their conversation, Kyoichi gets stomach pains because Tetsuo had put expired milk in his coffee. He excuses himself to the bathroom. Kasen signals to Tetsuo that she also added laxatives to the coffee, but then reveals that she put it in both cups, including Tetsuo's. Tetsuo hurries to set up a keylogger on Kyoichi's laptop to gather information, but starts feeling sick. Tetsuo goes outside to relieve himself in the garden, but his daughter Reika sees him. Then Kyoichi asks Reika about Nobuto's disappearance. But seeing Reika worried, Kyoichi took his laptop and moved to another part of the house. Reika asks Kasen about him, and Tetsuo overhears. He quickly tells Reika that Kyoichi is a client from his company and that he asked for advice to help Reika avoid bad men. Kasen plays along to make the story believable. After that, Tetsuo and Kyoichi leave, while Reika plans to head out as well. Kasen stays home to handle tasks for Tetsuo. After seeing the keylogger, Tetsuo realizes that Kyoichi was emailing while in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Reika finds a note in her shoe from Kyoichi, which is asking her to contact him and informing her that her parents are hiding something. Kasen reads emails about a video that she made with Tabata. The emails reveal that if Nobuto's body isn't found soon, they will frame Tetsuo for his murder and torture him to make him confess. Kasen also learns that Kyoichi's address has been found. After that, Tetsuo and Kyoichi arrive at Reika's apartment, where Tetsuo is reminded of what he did to Nobuto. Kyoichi begins searching the apartment for clues. Meanwhile, Kasen goes to another location and discovers that this address is of the Kyoichi's parents' house. Kyoichi's mother welcomes her inside, and to inquire, Kasen lies by saying that she's there to tell them Kyoichi won a prize. During their conversation, Kyoichi's mother explains that her husband ran an eatery but took his own life after getting involved with a crime syndicate. The police didn't help in it, so Kyoichi changed and became more independent. He now sends his mother essentials and plans to open a diner once he has enough money. As his mother worries about losing Kyoichi, Kasen recalls Tetsuo's plan. Tetsuo had told her about a backup plan if the video didn't work. He planned to frame someone else as Nobuto's killer by using Nobuto's bones, his social media passwords, and fake video as evidence. Kassen leaves with a bag and plans to find Kyoichi's actual address. Kyoichi checks his laptop and Kassen realizes that she can use the keylogger to gather more information. Meanwhile, Kyoichi learns that Reika read the message and then they arrange to meet. Before leaving, Kyoichi handcuffs Tetsuo and attaches a GPS to him so he can track him if he tries to escape. Tetsuo also receives a message from Kassen, which is to alert him that Reika and Kyoichi are planning to meet at a diner. He got worried but found him helpless. Tetsuo asks Kassen to bring the GPS device and go to Reika's apartment. Once there, she hands him the GPS and they place an envelope in the mailbox. Someone picks it up and Tetsuo explains that they must stop Reika from meeting Kyoichi. Tetsuo accepts Kassen's offer and leaves the apartment. He plans to deliver the GPS to Kyoichi's apartment and then return to Reika's apartment. Tetsuo has set up call forwarding so that if Kyoichi tries calling, the call will be redirected to Kassen's phone. This will give Tetsuo time to complete their plan before Kyoichi returns to Reika's apartment. Meanwhile, Tetsuo barely hides himself after seeing Kyoichi leaving the elevator. Tetsuo retrieves an envelope from Kyoichi's mailbox. Meanwhile, Kassen meets with Reika before her meeting with Kyoichi. Kassen asks Reika if she wants to go home with her, but Reika says she's meeting someone and doesn't want her mother around because she finds it embarrassing. Meanwhile, Tetsuo heads to Kyoichi's room to plant evidence, but he got interrupted when someone exits the elevator. He decides to try entering Kyoichi's room from the roof but quickly abandons the idea as he realizes that he doesn't have the right tools. He then returns to Reika's apartment in time. There Kyoichi arrives, and Tetsuo asks him why he is upset. Kyoichi doesn't respond because Reika canceled their meeting. Kyoichi starts to wonder if Nobuto died in Reika's apartment, as no one saw him leave. He turns off the lights and uses a special flashlight to search for blood or fingerprints, but finds nothing. He got confused and contacted his friend to ask about the flashlight, but the friend tells him the flashlight Kyoichi is using is an expensive one, not the cheap one that he expected. Kyoichi then receives an email about the envelope, which he doesn't recognize. Tetsuo takes this moment to ask Kyoichi about his connection to Takeda, suggesting that Takeda might suspect Kyoichi as Nobuto's killer and may have sent the mysterious email. Kyoichi starts to worry that someone might have planted something in his laptop, so Tetsuo suggests to go to Kyoichi's apartment to check the envelope. When they get there, Tetsuo notices the door has a security cover, which means he could never have picked the lock. In a flashback, Tetsuo switched Kyoichi's special flashlight with a regular one to hide the evidence. Tetsuo had also distracted Kyoichi with questions about Takeda to keep him from noticing the fake flashlight. In the present, Kyoichi asks how someone could have broken into his apartment to plant false evidence, and Tetsuo lists several possible ways. They search the apartment for anything like Nobuto's wallet or phone that could have been planted. Kyoichi leads Tetsuo to his safe, and Tetsuo learns that Kyoichi's organization is more like a gang than a typical crime group. But then Kyoichi starts to get suspicious of Tetsuo and asks him why he's helping so much. Tetsuo claims he wants to survive and frame Takeda as the killer to protect Kyoichi, but Kyoichi doesn't fully believe him. Kyoichi promises to find the evidence needed to prove Tetsuo is guilty. Meanwhile, at some other place, Kassen is investigating a specific location. After that, Tetsuo remembers some advice from his late father. He shares stories with Kyoichi about his parents and how they died. Tetsuo explains that his father was a police officer who loved mystery novels and crime shows. However, Kyoichi knows that Tetsuo isn't lying because he checked his records beforehand. Then, both men share how they have become who they are today because of the people they lost. Tetsuo asks Kyoichi if his death could be covered up as a suicide or accident to protect Reika from living with hate, but Kyoichi doesn't answer, and they eat together. Later, Tetsuo and Kyoichi visit Takeda at his hideout. Takeda confirms that that video of Nobuto was fake and also mentions that they couldn't trace the uploader. Tetsuo goes to the restroom because the smoke is bothering him, and one of Takeda's men gives him a mask. When Tetsuo returns, Takeda tells him that he can leave as he is not needed anymore. But suddenly Takeda receives shocking news and pulls Tetsuo aside. He asked him what he talked about with Kyoichi. Tetsuo shares some information with Takeda off-screen and says it's all true. After that, Takeda's men check Nobuto's apartment and discover a hidden door in the floor. Inside it, they find a lot of cash. Takeda informs everyone about this discovery and says he will also search Kyoichi's apartment because of a suspicious email. The email suggests Kyoichi and Nobuto were involved in an armored car robbery, which makes Takeda question Kyoichi's involvement in Nobuto's disappearance. However, Kyoichi is unaware that he's being framed, so he attacks Tetsuo. But just in time, Takeda hits Kyoichi and says he will explain everything on the way to his apartment. At Kyoichi's apartment, they find Kubo waiting. Kyoichi insists he didn't kill Nobuto, but Kubo taunts him by saying one of them will die tonight. Then Kubo asks Kyoichi to open his safe. Takeda's men check the cash found in the safe, but none of the serial numbers match the stolen money, which leads them to believe the email was fake. However, they find a strange bag in the safe. Kyoichi is shocked because he doesn't know how it got there. Kyoichi accuses Takeda of framing him for murder. Kubo then finds bones in the bag, one of which he identifies as Nobuto's. Kubo tells Kyoichi that he has damaged the organization's relationship with Motori. He orders his men to take Kyoichi's money. Kyoichi tries to explain that Tetsuo and Takeda are framing him, but Kubo doesn't believe him. Kubo then orders Takeda to bring Kyoichi's body to Motori in a body bag. Tetsuo in his mind reveals that he set Kyoichi up. In a flashback, Tetsuo tells Takeda that Kyoichi suspects Takeda is framing him for Nobuto's murder. During Tetsuo's bathroom break, he secretly speaks with Kasen and asks her to retrieve an evidence bag from a hiding spot and send the fake email about the robbery. Then the scene switches to Kasen preparing to sneak into Kyoichi's apartment through the roof to place the evidence bag in his safe. Meanwhile, Tetsuo asks Takeda if he can leave. Takeda tells him that he's free to go, but must forget everything the organization put him through. Tetsuo takes one last look at Kyoichi and then leaves. Then a flashback to earlier, at 1:40 a.m. on Friday, shows when Kasen is preparing to sneak into Kyoichi's apartment. She has tools that Tetsuo told her to buy to help her break into the apartment and escape. Once inside, Kasen finds the safe and remembers Tetsuo saying it has a 4-digit code. She uses the special flashlight and sees the numbers used on the safe, but now she has to figure out the correct combination. After trying 3 times and failing, the safe locks her out for 10 minutes. She tries again, and after 2 more attempts, the safe opens. She places the evidence bag inside and heads home. Tetsuo texts Kasen to tell her that it's done, which makes her happy. Meanwhile, Kyoichi fights back as he does not want to lose everything, and then he tries to escape. He reaches the roof and notices signs that someone had recently been there, which makes him more suspicious. He goes back into his apartment to grab some money, which is hidden in a sink cabinet. Kyoichi then created a scene by thawing the money and started yelling that Takeda and his men are thieves and murderers. He escapes from there, and after finding a quiet spot, Kyoichi thinks about everything he discovered. He realizes someone entered his apartment through the veranda, but he doesn't know who it was. To stay hidden from the organization, he puts on a dress. Meanwhile, Tetsuo arrives at Reika's apartment and feels guilty for betraying Kyoichi. At the same time, Reika tells Kasen that she saw Kyoichi before Nobuto went missing and thinks he was the stalker. After that, Kyoichi calls Motori and tells him that Tetsuo is the one who killed Nobuto. Kyoichi told him that the organization plans to frame someone else for Nobuto's murder if they can't find the real killer. He adds that the organization didn't care about finding Nobuto once they learned that he had been involved in a robbery. Motori thanks Kyoichi but doesn't care who killed Nobuto, as he's ready to hunt down either Kyoichi or Tetsuo. Later, Motori visits Reika's apartment to investigate by using an ALS light. Meanwhile, Tetsuo is hiding in the closet. Motori doesn't find conclusive evidence at first, but then he spots blood and traces it to Reika's closet. Tetsuo realizes he has to stop Motori. Motori becomes emotional as he sees signs of Nobuto's death and asks Tetsuo if he is there. Tetsuo reveals that he killed Nobuto. However, Motori doesn't plan to involve the police as he wants to kill Tetsuo and his family instead. Listening to this, Tetsuo got furious and started fighting. Then the 2 men fight, but before Motori can call for help, Tetsuo breaks his phone. Meanwhile, Kubo and one of Motori's men notice police arriving, but the man thinks it's best to leave Motori alone. Inside the apartment, Motori choked Tetsuo with an extension cord. After facing low breaths, Tetsuo recalls a memory where Reika almost drowned at the beach. Meanwhile, Motori continues to choke him, but he remembers how he never truly loved anyone in his life until he learned to love Nobuto through the organization. He loosens his grip when thinking about Nobuto's death. This gives Tetsuo a chance to escape. Motori warns that if he dies, the organization will come after Tetsuo's family. Then Motori stabs himself. When the police knock on the door, Tetsuo panicked. Tetsuo tells the police he's busy and promises to meet them later. He quickly rearranges things in the apartment before Kubo's man enters. The man looks around but leaves, thinking Motori had already left. Tetsuo hides Motori's body in the bathroom and starts planning what to do next. Kasen calls Tetsuo as she is wondering why he didn't come home for dinner. Tetsuo doesn't mention the fight with Motori and instead asks her to protect Reika. Tetsuo decides to bury Motori's body. While Reika recalls a time when Tetsuo saved her from drowning, Tetsuo reflects on whether this cycle of violence will ever end. After burying Motori's body, Tetsuo returns home, where Kasen is waiting for him in the rain. She slaps him as she is worried that he might not return. They go inside, and Reika scolds Tetsuo for making them wait. The family eats dinner together. However, later, they watch a news report about a typhoon heading toward the area where Tetsuo buried Motori's body. Tetsuo believes everything will be fine as the storm looms ahead. Subscribe to my channel for more amazing recaps like this. If you have any suggestions for the next recap, comment down below.